Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the authorities are working hard to help Jamaicans affected by Hurricane Beryl get their lives back to normal in the shortest possible time. The Prime Minister spoke to the media on Thursday at the end of a tour of St. Elizabeth, the parish hardest hit by the Category 4 hurricane.
Having this aerial and ground tour would have given me a better perspective as to the kind of response we need to create. And so the government's response obviously is to get electricity and utilities back on board, and we're working with the utility companies who have been giving regular updates, and they're moving very quickly, and I have all confidence that they will restore service very quickly. The next level of service would be to help people who have been displaced. They can't live in their homes. Their circumstances are very uncomfortable, to help them to get back on their feet. And so we'll craft an emergency response in that regard. And then, as I said, to assist the economic engine of these communities to return. So it will be a multifaceted and comprehensive response.
Mr. Holness says notwithstanding the damage caused by Beryl in several communities, Jamaica dodged a proverbial bullet.
Now, for the residents who live in these areas who are inconvenienced and displaced and dislocated, this is serious, and the government will act in a speedy way to assist the recovery process. But from a national level, I think Jamaica was spared the worst. We were hit by a Category 4 hurricane, but I'm no expert on these matters, but it would appear to me that the damage would be less than what we expected from a Category 4 hurricane. So I think we were spared. I think all Jamaicans should be giving a collective thank you and saying even more prayers of gratitude.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. The Minister of Energy Daryl Vaz says he may have to enlist help from outside the country to restore the country's power supply if the lighted power company JPS is unable to do so in a reasonable time. More than 65% of Jamaicans remain without power this morning following the passage of Hurricane Beryl.
What I can assure the country is that I am going to demand answers, and the fact of the matter is that I am going to make an assessment as to whether or not JPS is capable on their own and to restore the power in the timeline that we need as a country. So I'm going to give them that opportunity. But I want to make it very clear that if it means that I have to go outside of that to seek assistance to get us back up and running, I will. It happened in 1988 when Mr. Siaga called in and got overseas support. But based on the level of damage and the geographic area, meaning almost every parish in Jamaica, every nook and cranny, for me, up in the Buff Bay Valley, in the Rio Grande Valley, those are not easy places to access.
Yes.
And time is not on our side.
The JPS says it will conduct an assessment to see how best to move forward with its restoration efforts. The JPS says restoration works in some areas could be delayed by roadblocks and landslides. However, Minister Vaz says despite his best efforts up to Thursday, he has yet to get firm answers from the company as to where things stand.
I have asked the question, and all I have been told is that assessments are being done. And as I said before, I have not heard anybody tell me that they have gotten back light. I only get complaints that they have no light from last night. But again, I am a fair and balanced person. I'm giving them the 24 hours for them to pull together to do their assessment. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at my office, that's when I expect the answers to start coming in and to keep flowing so that I can keep the public aware. I must be able to tell the public that this part of St. Andrew is expected to get light today, this part of Montego Bay, this part of Moko, this part of Portland. I must be in a position as minister to keep the country advised as to the progress and the timeline that people can expect so that they can plan.
And Minister Vaz says in addition to the JPS, he will on Friday meet with officials of Flow, Digicel and the National Water Commission to get an update on the restoration of utilities following the passage of Hurricane Beryl.
I can advise the nation that I'll be having a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at my office, where I have some of the Jamaica Public Service Company management and chairman, along with the two telcos, Flow and Digicel. And also joining me will be Minister Matthew Samuda and the NWC, as of course their water supplies are heavily dependent on the restoration of JPS. So we have given them the day for the assessments to be done, and I'm expecting a full plan to be revealed to me tomorrow.
Minister Vaz says a media briefing will follow the meeting.
Following which, at 10 a.m., We will have a press briefing to allow for the press to ask questions so that we can better inform the country as to what timelines we're looking at. I ask for patience again, as Beryl just passed us yesterday evening into the night, and it is only fair and reasonable that I allow them the day so that they can do their assessments. I'm looking forward to updating the nation with timelines and positive news.
Daryl Vaz, Energy Minister. And the Southeast St. Catherine MP Robert Miller is accusing the JPS of endangering the livelihoods of scores of small business owners and the senior citizens in the constituency. Miller made an urgent appeal to the JPS to restore power to the constituency as soon as possible. He says while he understands that the Light and Power Company is focusing on restoration to the emergency sector at this time, a timeline is needed for the restoration of power to several areas in Portmore and its environs. He says he has been in dialogue with the Energy Minister, Daryl Vaz, on the increasingly urgent issue. He says several residents in communities including Westchester, Portsmouth and Waterford are meat vendors and their livelihood is now in peril due to the lack of power. The Southeast St. Catherine MP says several senior citizens in the constituency are also in a vulnerable state as their medication, which must be kept refrigerated, is now unusable. He says the absence of electricity has empowered criminal elements to move into the communities under the cover of darkness to perpetrate crimes. He says it's important that the JPS act now and bring relief to residents. The National Water Commission (NWC) says progress is being made in assessing and restoring water supply to affected customers across the island. It says its field teams have been dispatched to begin assessment of water supply systems across the island. The acting corporate public relations manager at NWC, Delano Williams, says more than 20 systems have so far been given the all clear to resume.
So far, our teams have checked a number of systems across the parishes. We have had slow going in some areas, for instance, some Portmore areas and also Rear Cobra areas of St. Catherine, similarly in Manchester and sections of St. Elizabeth. However, we are making good progress with a number of other systems. So we have checked nearly 50 of our systems so far. 24 of them have been considered to be restart ready, meaning they have been checked by our maintenance teams and given the all clear. We are now awaiting the public power supply to be restored so we can restart the plants.
Mr. Williams says the systems impacted by Beryl are mostly located in the southern and the northeastern sections of the island.
The variables mean we can't give a blanket answer for restoration. Some persons, as we're seeing, are now going to have restoration within 12 hours, others within the next 12 to 24 hours, and it's going to be a progression of that sort over the next few days. As we clear one system, we quickly move on. Because we have multiple teams out, it gives us the advantage to be bringing back multiple systems as well. But the terrain, the power supply, which is somewhat out of our hands. But we do have a commitment from JPS as they work to restore the national grid that our systems will also be brought back online.
Delano Williams, acting corporate public relations manager at NWC. And Mr. Williams says 3 of the company's major water systems have been checked and restarted.
The full restoration of the Mona and Hope facilities in Kingston, in Springfield, St. Thomas, we're also back to full operations. And in St. James, the Great River Water Supply Facility is also back to 50% initially, and work is continuing, both at that Great River as well as the Martha Brae and Logwood systems, which are situated on the western end. There are some systems that are situated quite remotely between St. Mary, Portland, and some sections of northern Clarendon. That will take some time. We are working through those, and as soon as we get to them, then we will make an assessment as to their readiness for restoration.
Mr. Williams says water has been trucked to emergency shelters and health facilities.
We have also been responding with trucks to, firstly, the emergency locations. For instance, during the outage, the Falmouth and the Cornwall regional areas were supplemented with water. And we are also responding to the shelters, the health centers, and the other institutions, first and foremost, and also taking customer requests as necessary to ensure that persons do have water to tide them over the next few days, so to speak.
That's Delana Williams, Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at NWC. Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett says there's been no major fallout in the sector due to the passage of Hurricane Beryl.
The effect of Beryl, of course, has been that the south coast, where we have some assets, were affected, but 80% of the assets of tourism overall remain intact, and we are therefore ready to receive guests in these particular areas. We have looked at every element of our product in the last 24 hours. Indeed, we established a center at Pegasus, the TEOC, and we managed to follow what was happening everywhere and to respond as quickly as we could. The result, of course, is that today we can say that the industry is open and ready for business.
Minister Bartlett says he's received isolated reports of property damage following the hurricane. He says some tourists who were relocated have since returned to their hotels.
We had 50 tourists who were temporarily hosted at the convention center. Of course, the hotel from which they came ensured that the supplies of bedding and food and other requirements were there. And they all have been returned and are properly placed in their hotel and are preparing themselves now for their departure, some later tonight and others tomorrow.
That's the Tourism Minister, Edmund Bartlett. Overseas news now. Sir Keir Starmer is vowing to rebuild Britain as its next Prime Minister after his Labour Party surged to a landslide victory in a parliamentary election ending 14 years of Conservative government. The centre-left Labour won a massive majority in the 650-seat House of Commons. Labour won 410 seats, an increase of 210 from its 2019 performance, while the Conservatives, the Western world's most successful political party, lost about 250 lawmakers, including a record number of senior ministers and former Prime Minister Liz Truss. Rishi Sunak's Conservatives suffered the worst performance in the party's long history as voters punished them for a cost of living crisis, failing public services, and a series of scandals. In a speech announcing his resignation as Tory leader and Prime Minister on Friday, Sunak apologized to voters and his party.
I will shortly be seeing His Majesty the King to offer my resignation as Prime Minister. To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss. To all the Conservative candidates and campaigners who worked tirelessly but without success, I am sorry that we could not deliver what your efforts deserved. It pains me to think how many good colleagues who contributed so much to their communities and our country will now no longer sit in the House of Commons. I thank them for their hard work and their service.
Sunak later wished Keir Starmer good luck in his new role.
Whilst he has been my political opponent, Sir Keir Starmer will shortly become our Prime Minister. In this job, his successes will be all our successes, and I wish him and his family well. Whatever our disagreements in this campaign, he is a decent, public-spirited man who I respect. He and his family deserve the very best of our understanding as they make the huge transition to their new lives behind this door, and as he grapples with this most demanding of jobs in an increasingly unstable world.
That's Rishi Sunak, former UK Prime Minister.